Shalom, shalom, family, shalom. We here with another lesson today. This time is about planets. What are they? And if they're real, right? You know, since I've been a child, they always talked about planets and that they were these giant, I guess, rocks or other places where life form could possibly live, but a lot of them, I guess, the temperatures and the degrees and the terrain and all of them got a bajillion storms that, a lot of stuff really didn't make sense to me as a kid, but now I'm older and I have more wisdom and more knowledge and stuff, information. I'm gonna show you what this planet is about, but I'm gonna also show you what it's about through the biblical eyes, right? Because that's what it's always about through the Bible, never through just man, because man is liars, right? Men are always lying. So we're gonna look at it through the godly perspective today. Our planets, what they tell us, right? Are they these giant rocks? Are they these giant pieces of gas? Like, what are they, right? So here we go. A planet, this is off Google, this is not me, right? A planet is a celestial body that orbits a star. It's massive enough for its gravity to make it round and has cleared its orbital path of other objects. In our solar system, there are 8 planets: Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. Right? Orbiting the star is one of the characteristics of a planet, right? So planets revolve around the star, such as our sun, right? So planets is revolving around some form of star. So in this particular one, in our what is this, like our solar system, they have, or the sun is the main star, and then you go further out, you got these other planets that's like super further out, and they got like a main star and so forth, right? So our main star is the sun, right? Hydrostatic equilibrium, gravity shapes the planet into a nearly round or spherical form. Clearing the neighborhood, a planet's gravity dominates its orbital path, clearing away most other objects, right? So it's a historical context. It's just the term planet comes from the Greek word planetus, meaning wanderer, because these celestial bodies is a weird term to use, appear to move across the sky relative to the fixed stars, according to the American Museum of Natural History. Apologies. Historically, Pluto was considered the ninth planet, but the International Astronomical Union redefined the term in 2006, reclassifying Pluto as a dwarf planet. There are 8 planets divided into 2 categories: terrestrial planets, rocky, Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars; gas giants, Jupiter and Saturn; and then ice giants, Uranus and Neptune, which is even crazier because that's 3 categories, but who's counting, right? So we look at these planets, right? These are the planets. And as you can see, Earth, right? That's the only one, even though there's all fake images, right? I don't believe these images are real. These are all like digital images. You see, Earth is the only one that's supposed to have life. Mars can possibly have life, and they've been telling us that for years and making movies and shows and stuff about Mars having life or possible have life. So they think about putting us on there. You got Total Recall and all these other movies about Mars, or aliens come from Mars, Mars attack, so forth, right? But the other planets, I guess, ain't habitable. They're either too cold or they're too hot. And I guess Mars is, just right. Little Goldilocks story, right? But these are supposed to be the so-called planets, right? This is what they would look like, I guess, if they was in a straight line. At some point they do line up according to them. And you can see Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars. Then it has an asteroid belt, right? Now, earlier when I was reading, it said that the planet has so much gravitational pull that there's nothing that will be in its path. So like a planet wouldn't hit another planet, right? Because of the way they're just magically have this gravitational pull that they never hit each other and nothing can come into them, right? But Earth isn't like these. Earth apparently gets hit by asteroids, comets, and all these things come by, but these other planets are not like that, right? Um, which is really interesting, right? Then you got like the Kuiper belt and these clouds. So there's also barriers in between the planets, right? Of just super asteroids or super things, of what's going on. And the problem is that uh people don't really think about like how far fetched this is for far as the planets and how close they are. So Earth is where it's at on this map, right? Instead of Earth is a little closer, just a tad bit close, like an inch closer in orbit to the sun, or an inch further away, it would freeze. Inch too close, it'll burn. Right. Now, I could say that's God. I don't believe in the solar system diagram, but let's say I would say that's God, right? So you're telling me the planet just blew up and exploded and everything just lined up how it was supposed to, and Earth is the only one that can have life because in the movies, aliens are like super duper creatures, but they can like breathe in space. So it would be not far fetched to say there's aliens on other planets because they don't have to have the same type of oxygen and things like that and elements as we do because we're people, right? But like I said, we're gonna dig into this, and this is what it would look like, even crazier. Just how far they are from each other. I mean, it's a diagram to show them pretty close, but we're talking like millions and millions of miles. The further you go, and I can only imagine how long it would take to get somewhere at a million miles. That's just insane. Right. And let alone, let's say they do send somebody, like they said on the quote unquote moon. Well, how do you get back? Because you had to get a rocket to get up there. There's no rocket on the moon already to send you back. Right. A lot of things don't make sense. Right. So these are all the planets and their names, even the sun and the moon and the asteroid. Now, what the crazy part about this is that all these are their names is interesting, right? I always thought that was when I was a kid, like, who named the planets, why do they get the names? And I guess, quote unquote, it would basically be who discovered them first, right? But if we're dealing with God, God would have had to already have a name, for these particular planets, right? And the Bible doesn't talk about them. It does talk about the sun and it talks about the moon, right? The sun being the greater light for the day, the moon, the lesser light for nighttime, right? But when I was coming up, they would tell you that the sun gives the moon its light. So the moon don't have no light, right? But it's sometimes where the sun, isn't in direct, not in a direct light or path into the moon. So how can the moon even have light, right? When the Earth is supposedly spinning and doing all this spinning, 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 there's a time where the sun doesn't even see the moon, but yet the moon has light, right? Because it shines light every night. It's always lit up, right? And they'll come up with some crazy math problem that you can't solve, or that's not a realistic problem, or just have all these crazy words and we just believe it because it's everywhere you go. It's in TVs and movies and your books, it's in your classrooms, and these make you believe this. But we're gonna get back into these names because these names are all interesting, right? Jupiter, Neptune, Saturn, Mars, Uranus, Pluto, right? So we're going to start with First Timothy chapter 6, verse 20 and 21. It reads, O Timothy, keep that which is committed to thy trust, avoiding profane and vain babblings and oppositions of science, falsely so called, which some profess and have erred concerning the faith. Grace be with thee, Amen. Right? And it tells you where it's written from. So this is saying science that's falsely, right? What they so called, because people don't understand science is just the observance of something, right? That's science isn't when you're making a volcano or your school project or you're doing some type of experiment. Science is the knowledge of us watching the experiment, able to take notes, right? That's the knowledge. So he's talking about the false science, right? The false knowledge that they're talking about, right? Because that's basically what this is all about. Because, like I said, the Bible has its own definitions, its own thesaurus, its own everything, and then the world has things and change things, right? But the problem comes with, certain things as math and certain things just won't add up. So for instance, this is Second Peter chapter 3, verse 8. It says, "But beloved, be not ignorant of this one thing, that one day is with the Lord as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is one day." Right. So every day we live on earth, that's like 1,000 years to God. Right. So when the 7 days when God was creating the earth, that was like 1,000 years, 7,000 years to the angels and God, right? That's how they experienced that. Um, that's how they experienced that time, right? Because they're different. They're immortal people, right? They don't die. They're not like us. They're outside of this time barrier, which they can go inside the time, but God exists outside of time. So a day is like 1,000 years, right? So let's say that's the case, right? So now we got to do the math. If 7 days is 7,000 years, how many days has it been in the biblical 6,000 years, right? 6,000 on Earth years. But then the Earth tells us, or the people of the science tell us, that the Earth been here for what, 16 point billion years or 17 billion years, some crazy astronomical number where you can't do the math on a regular calculator, right? That's a long time, right? But a lot of people that believe in the Big Bang Theory don't even believe in God, right? So just check this out. So here go these planet things again, right? So this is Genesis chapter 6, verse 1. And it says, "And it came to pass when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them, that the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were fair, and they took them wives of all which they chose. And the Lord said, My spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he also is flesh, yet his days shall be 120 years. There were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came into the daughters of men, and they bare children to them. The same became mighty men, which were older men of renown." So this is when the fallen angels came down and had relations with, regular guys' wives, right? So regular people like me and you, and they created these super beasts, these giants, these abominations, your cyclops, and all these. So these characters like Hercules and all them, those are real people. Those are not myths, right? And they came from fallen angels' children. They pass it off as a myth, so we, won't pay attention to it. But then, like I said, when I say Hercules, you got Pluto. There's a god named Pluto in the mythology. There's a god named Neptune. You got all these different god names, right? So with you having all these different god names, like I said, where do they come from? Like who chose to name the sun the sun? Who chose to name the moon, right? So I believe God chose those names. Now, when it comes to the planets, well, who chose those? We would have to say God, right? So that means God would have already knew this was called Neptune and so forth. But the Bible doesn't describe it like that, right? So check this out. This is 2 Kings 23, verses 3 through 7. Right. "And the king stood by a pillar and made a covenant before the Lord to walk after the Lord and to keep his commandments and his testimonies and his statutes with all their heart and all their soul, to perform the words of this covenant that were written in this book. And all the people stood to the covenant. And the king commanded Hilkiah the high priest, and the priests of the second order, and the keepers of the door, to bring forth out of the temple of the Lord all the vessels that were made for Baal, and for the grove, and for all the host of heaven. And he burned them without Jerusalem in the fields of Kidron, and carried the ashes of them unto Bethel. And he put down idolatrous priests, whom the kings of Judah had ordained to burn incense in the high places in the city of Judah, and in the places round about Jerusalem. Them also that burn incense unto Baal, to the sun, and to the moon, and to the planets, and all the host of heaven. And he brought out the grove from the house of the Lord without Jerusalem unto the brook Kidron, and burned it at the brook Kidron, and it stamped it small to powder, and cast the powder thereof upon the graves of the children of the people, and break down the houses of the Sodomites that were by the house of the Lord, where the women wove hangings for the groves. All right, so right here it talks about the sun, the moon, the planets, and all the host of heaven. Right. So somebody was that asked me, was like, "Well, see, the Bible do talk about planets." It does, right? But are these people burning incense to these giant rocks, or is this word playing is something different, right? Is it something that we're not, understanding, right? So this is the book of Acts, right? This is chapter 14, verses 8 through 14. It says, "And there sat a certain man, Elisha, impotent in his feet, being a cripple from his mother's womb, who never had walked. The same heard Paul speak, who steadfastly beholding him, and perceiving that he had faith to be healed, said with a loud voice, Stand upright on thy feet. And he leaped and walked. And when the people saw what Paul had done, they lifted up their voices, saying in the speech of Lycaonia, The gods are come down to us in the likeness of men." Right? You see that? It says the gods have come down to us likeness of men. Check this out. On verse 12, it says, "And they called Barnabas Jupiter and Paul Mercurius," right? Or Mercury, because he was the chief speaker. Then the priest of Jupiter, which was before their city, brought oxen and garlands unto the gates, and would have done sacrifice with the people, which, when the apostles, Barnabas and Paul, heard of, they rent their clothes and ran in among the people, crying out, right? So it says Jupiter and Mercurius, right? So check this out. So this is the sun, right? It's called the Sol or the Helios, depending on what you're looking at. Is it Rome or Greek, right? Then you got Pluto, right? Its Roman name is Pluto, and then the Greek name is Hades, right? And then every single planet has this: Mercury, Venus, Tellus is Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune. And the Greek versions is Hermes, Aphrodite, Gaia, Aries, Zeus, Kronos, Uranus, Poseidon, right? These are all names of gods, right? All names of gods, right? Except for the earth. Earth is the only one that God made is the earth, right? These other ones are made, but these are not planets, right? These other things don't exist. But this is one way for us to pay homage to them, right? Because like I said, we're talking about planets. So check this out. It says the gods have come down to us. So they thinking that Paul and Barnabas are gods, right? The gods that they worship. So this is back then. This isn't later on. This is early first century AD, right? They don't have these telescopes and stuff to be looking at planets and just know the names, but they got these names though, right? Jupiter and Mercury. That's because they're gods, right? These are names of the fallen angels, right? And this is how they know that, right? So when we got the solar system, what better way to keep reverence of the fallen angels, keep reverence of these false gods by putting their name in the system, right? A lot of things that we do or, today are name of gods or goddesses, Nike, that's a name of a god. Apollo, they're shooting the missile out or whatever, in space, that's the name of a god. I mean, I could go on and on with just like a list of gods. I'll do that in another video, but it's so many different god names. So by us knowing the planets, right, and they're giving them names, was like why Mercury couldn't just be called, hot planet, or be called, I don't know, cake maker, right? It could have been called anything else, but the names it's called are not the Greek gods, right, or Roman gods. And the reason why is, like I said, you pay homage to them, you keep them in your memory. And I know this because I know every planet because of school, right? It really has no purpose because besides learning about them in school, they really never had no real reason to be in my life. Really had no reason to know this information. And I know it because they used to teach us this saying. It was saying, "My very educated mother just served us 9 pizzas or just served us 9 pies." And when you do that, each word starts with a letter, and that letter is the planet. So my Mercury, very Venus, educated Earth, Mars, you know what I'm saying? It goes so forth and so forth. All right. So now I know those. And then, like I said, they keep it going. They're constantly, talking about planets, right? Talking about space, giving kids these ideas that, you can go out of space, and you can go here, you can go there. That's not real, right? That's all science. That's all science. right? All scientific things and stuff like that. Or even they say the moon, they say the sun is a giant rock, burning fire, and the moon is a cold rock, right? Which is actually hot and cold, but a cold rock with no light. But when God talks about the sun and the moon, he doesn't call them rocks, he just calls them lights, right? And there got to be different lights because in the sunlight, right? It's so hot in the sunlight, but when you're in the shade, it's cooler. But in the moonlight, it's actually cooler in the moonlight and hotter in the shade. That means it's giving off a different kind of light, right? But like I said, these are the things that we don't know about. So when the Bible talks about planets, it's not talking about giant rocks, right? It's talking about wandering stars, which we're gonna get into. I'm gonna show you. Acts 19:34 and third verse 36, right? Let me make sure. Yep. Okay, cool. It says, but when they knew that he was a Jew, all with one voice about the space of 2 hours cried out, great is Diana of the Ephesians. And when the town clerk had appeased the people, he said, ye men of Ephesus, what man is there that knoweth not how that the city of the Ephesians is of the worshiper of the great goddess Diana and of the image which fell down from Jupiter, right? Saying then that these things cannot be spoken against, ye ought to be quiet and do nothing rashly, right? So even right here, you could probably say, oh, this here says Jupiter fell down from Jupiter, right? And they'll say this is like a planet, but no, this is not a planet, right? This is just the way their lingo is, right? Jupiter is another name for God, right? If you go look up all these gods and things like that, right, and you see their names, right, they're from their stories, the way they tell them, right? The thing is, they pass them off as myths. So your Horuses and all this stuff, there's nothing but just the devil in them in disguise, right? And somehow down the line, they pass them off as planets, but God doesn't address them as a rock. He doesn't address them as something that's in a solar system, right? God doesn't address a lot of these things because they're not part of the solar system in that way, right? This is the way that they're part of the solar system. So this is Jude 1 and 6 and verse 13. So verse 6 reads, and the angels which kept not their first estate, but left their own habitation, he have reserved an everlasting chains on the darkness unto the judgment of the great day. So the angels that broke their first estate, they're all in trouble. They're all locked up, right? Under the earth, under pyramids, certain things like that. And the angels that broke their first estate are the ones that was in Genesis 6 that came down and slept with the women. It says, raging waves of the sea, foaming out their own shame, wandering stars, to whom is reserved the blackness of darkness forever. Right? So this is still talking about the angels, right? I just skipped a couple verses, precept upon precept, line upon line, here a little, there a little. It says, to whom is reserved the blackness of darkness forever, right? So I'm gonna go forward and just to go back to this word, the wandering stars, right? It's this word planetus, right? And it says a rover planet that is figuratively an erratic teacher, a wandering, right? So this is a wandering star, some erratic teacher, right? And these people or these gods are kind of like teachers to us, right? They were teaching people things, like I said before the flood. That's what these angels came down. They're wandering, so they mean they also you're not in their original place, as you can see right here. So that they own habitation. They're wandering. They're not in their station, right? That's what you would call somebody as a wanderer, right? You're not home no more. You're lost. You're going somewhere else, right? Because you're not in your original station, right? This is what a planet is, right? According to the Bible. So I'll show you this too. This is when you looked up this in the Greek, right? So this is Zeus, right? Because I had to look up things which is Jupiter, right? So Zeus and Jupiter is the same person. We all know about Zeus, right? So we look up Jupiter. This is one of the definitions, right? It says Deus of a certain affinity. In the oblique cases, there is used instead of it is probably cognate. Name Dis de Zeus, which is otherwise obsolete. Zeus or Dis among the Latins, Jupiter or Jove, the supreme deity of the Greeks, right? That word Jupiter is not a planet, right? When you go look in your Strongs, when you really dive into those things, it's not a planet. It's a god, It's a deity. It's an entity, right? It's not the Most High, but it is a God. Angels are gods too, right? Or the Elohim or Elohim, whichever one you use. Elohim is the original one, but Elohim, same thing, right? It's telling you it's a supreme deity. It nowhere in its definition tells you that it's a giant rock floating around in space, right? Same thing with Hermes, right? Hermes. Funny that it's a clothes company name after that, right? But it says perhaps from G2046, Hermes, the name of the messenger of the Greek deities, also of a Christian, Hermes or Mercury. So Mercury and Hermes is the same, but it says it's a Greek deity, right? We all know what deity is. None of these definitions that's being shown is showing that it's um it's a planet, right? As we know, like a rock with people on it, or with life on it, with water on it, with elements, right? These are, like I said, these are these things, right? So let me show you this. So you see this, the planetus. It says a rover, a planet, or an erratic teacher. Now, this is me. When did rocks become teachers? Right? When does gas become teachers, right? Because when I go back to this, right, you see, um, there are 8 planets, right? Gas giants, ice giants. Ice don't teach you nothing, right? But a person can, a soul can, an entity can, a spirit can, right? Since we're all spirits, right? These are spirits. So check this out. I mean, when I earlier I've said the term planet comes from the Greek word planetus, meaning wanderer. That's what it is, right? But see, they trick us and we not knowing our words and definitions. It says because these celestial bodies still appear to move across the sky relative to the fixed stars. Now, there are some stars out there that move that's not on their natural thing, and that's what they'll call these planets, right? And that's what people look out. So that's Jupiter, that's Mars, right? But that planet is not a rock, right? You just have stars that's wandering going off. They've named them something else, and this is what we got, right? So let me go back to where I was. They've named them these things. So you got Jupiter, wandering stars, right? Because a star is also another name for an angel. You got all these different names, right? And I'm aware of all these names because I play games like God of War, which has all these gods in it, right? And they got gods of the sun, gods of the water, gods of like Poseidon, the god of the water. Like all these things is gods. Even Tuesday is a god, right? It's a god of war. That's why like games and music comes out on Tuesday. At least it used to, right? Because it's all war, right? These are things that we don't know about. So check this out. Like these are probably the images of Earth with the moon, and these are just crazy because they're all digital images. No, you can't find no real image of any quote unquote planet, right? Not even Earth, right? Because they can't get that high anyway, right? And how the moon just right there, like who takes a picture like this? There's no stars, there's no flash. There's no nothing. None of these is crazy. I mean, the one right there in the corner, you had somebody have the camera behind the moon on the dark side of the moon. Just like somebody drew this, right, or painted this, right, on a digital image, right. Check this out. This is supposed to be Mars, right. I mess with technology. You can easily just change the color or something. This is probably like North Dakota or something, right? They're not going to tell you that because they want you to believe this, right? Because if it's so dangerous, how are you even able to get a rover on here, right? Because planets are moving according to them. The Earth is spinning at 1,000 miles an hour. These other planets are actually going faster than that, right? But let alone they have to send a droid, a drone, or something, whatever they're sending, right? The Mars rover. They got to send this through space. I'm not saying you can't make it. Let's say the space is real. I don't believe in outer space, but let's say you can make it. This thing has to go through millions of miles to get to this planet. that's also spinning super fast. Mind you, it's spinning fast in a circle and it's going around the sun. So let's say it's up here, right, in January, and I shoot this thing. When it's going down here, how does this thing have a homing device or traction to know to follow it all the way around? But let's say it do. Even though I don't believe it, let's say it does, right? Then it has to land on this planet at this crazy speed. It has to go through all these quote unquote storms, crazy weather, all these things. This doesn't make any sense, right? This is fictional folktale, but it's like I said, it's one way to keep the gods alive, right? To keep them remembering, because that's all it's all about, to keep remembrance of these fallen things. But then you do it in a way that's kind of clever to the point where you think you're not worshiping them or paying homage to them because you're calling them planets or a rock or something that don't exist, right? Um, Wearing certain clothes or honoring these things through days and whatnot, not realizing this is not even real, right? This is pictures of planets. None of these look real, right? Because in order for you, like I said, you had to fly something all the way through outer space. Don't even know how much gas this device could have to even go that far, or what is the device on, and the fact that you can control it through all this stuff. You're telling me on my cell phone, I'm struggling to have service in DC, but you got some type of device you can control from millions of miles away, and it's accurate enough to just fly by and get these amazing pictures. It just doesn't even make any sense. And they all look, like I said, they all look digital. They all look like fake. I haven't seen a picture of a real planet in my life, right? This is supposed to be Jupiter. That's the little red hot spot that Jupiter has. Like, okay, so how did you know that? Right? You had that something fly, right? And these don't even look like doesn't even look nothing like Earth. You can't tell what kind of terrain this is or anything. But for it to have all these crazy windstorms and all these crazy degrees and you can't breathe, you can't do that. Even though items, don't breathe like a iPad or something, doesn't breathe or anything, right? It get destroyed by elements too. If I leave like you leave your car out in the sun, tears the paint off the car. Bird droppings tear the paint off the car. Storms would destroy items. You telling me this storm ain't destroying this rover? What is this rover made out of? How did it even get through the storm? How did it get to a point where it just landed on the earth perfectly? There's no runaways on Mars. There's nobody. Hey, park over here. There's nobody on Mars. On none of these planets at that, right? There's nobody on none of them. But you have this ability, this thing to just fly by planets. Oh, that's Jupiter. Click. Oh, that's Mars. Click. That sounds crazy. But when you're teaching something so long to somebody since they've been young, it's easy to do it because now it's hard to unfool somebody. It's easy to fool somebody. It's really hard to unfool somebody. This is another picture of Jupiter. This is night and day. This is like two different pictures. This one looks like some type of alien that they made in a movie, and this is supposed to be a real image. So this one's a fake image. I really don't know. They said it's the most detailed picture, so this camera must be even better. But the crazy part about it is the picture's about the same size. All right, there's no real difference, right? And this is the problem that we have. So see 5 planets at once, 45 minutes before sunrise. So you got Mercury, Venus, Saturn, all these different stars, right? But they move, right? So yes, there are stars that move, right? And they just named them after these. These stars don't have these names, right? They are stars that move, but the they told us is like these are the planets, right? But it goes along with their story. It goes along with their lie. Oh, these are the planets. Those are one moves. You can see them sometimes. Sometimes you can't see them, right? But you don't know. You want to know why? Because you don't have the evidence or the ability to go out in outer space, right? Even though I don't believe outer space is real, but let's say it was real. You don't have the money for that. You can barely catch a flight nowadays. I can only imagine how much it would cost to send a rocket into the sky or a quote unquote spacesuit or a voyage to have food and all that. Like, who even has food to travel to Mars or to the moon, right? Who has that much type of time, right? Like, that stuff isn't realistic, right? But the thing is, we see it in TVs and movies and stuff like that, and we believe it, right? So just see how the stars are, just like how they are in this picture. Yeah, I believe there are stars that wander off and move, right? Even sometimes people say they see like a falling star, right? So they say stars blow up, right? And that could, hey, I wouldn't disagree, but you see a falling star. Who told you it's a falling star and why did the star fall? Right? From what I believe a falling star is, that's an angel coming into the earth, right? For instance, you see all these asteroids, all these things they talk about, and they'll show like these craters. You just see a crater, right? Where's the rock? Did the rock explode? How come the town's still here? None of that. How you know that wasn't an angel just landing here, right? A fallen angel or one of the angels that disobeyed God and decided to fall away. Nope. That's not what they're going to tell you, right? Because the more they tell you that type of stuff, the more you believe in God. And the whole point of this planet thing is so you don't believe in God, right? The sun and the moon be out at the same time. You can go outside and look, and the sun will be right here, and the moon will be right here at the same time. That's not even supposed to be a thing every day. And you can do this every day. That's not supposed to be a thing every day on the planet that we're on. The way they say it is a globe and it's spinning. That shouldn't even be possible, right? But the problem is we don't go out and check stuff for ourselves. We're just um, we're just here believing everything they say, right? So it's not visible to the unaided eye. See, everything has to be done by them, right? You got to get a telescope. You got to get this. I had a telescope when I was a kid, right? And I was looking, and the images, right, were the same images I seen in the planetarium. Same exact image, right? Even when I was in the planetarium, looking through this big old gigantic telescope, right? Big old super telescope. I looked through it. Oh man, that's cool. You can see the planet like it's just moving. Really weird because it's not spinning. Every time I come look at it, it's kind of like in the same position, right? Okay, cool. I get a telescope when I'm younger, around like 11, 12 years old. I'll go outside at nighttime. I can't see nothing. And then one day I'm messing with it, I start seeing them same images I seen in the planetarium. Now I know I don't have a planetarium telescope, right? But what's the point of having this giant telescope and it sees the same thing as a small telescope, right? It makes no sense. Now you can say that's for decoration and design, but you got to have something really powerful to get the images that I just showed you. You know, one image of real fine detail, and one image it looked like the rest of them, right? But that's kind of the trick. That's kind of the the illusion that this stuff is, like I said, not real. Planetary alignment. It says this rare event of alignment will be visible to the naked eye in the dark sky before the sunrise in the northern hemisphere. Jupiter, Mercury, Uranus, Mars, Neptune, and Saturn. That they're all going to align on a certain day, right? The crazy part about it is like I said, since there are certain stars that wander, they have to wander at a certain time because how would you know that they're coming at this particular point, right? And they'll say, "Oh yeah, well the planets, do this and do that," but the only way that will happen is if this happens more often than they say it happens, just like an eclipse. When they be saying, "Oh, eclipse is happening," and then you look up Google, eclipse happens every 6 to 18 months, all the time. And it's like, well, those not a total eclipse. Yeah, but like I said, it depends on where you're at in the world. Because when we were seeing the eclipse, others didn't see it, right? Because the sun and the moon is moving, right? According to the sun and the moon don't move. We moving. So that's why you only get them every so years. But they don't want you to look up to the sky. Because like I said, you start looking to the sky and you started reading the Bible for yourself, you start realizing a lot of this stuff ain't real. A lot of these things ain't what they said they are, right? A lot of these things aren't truth, right? But our problem is we listen to them. I always talk about what they're talking about. Even Google told you where the planet was and where the word came from. Then I showed you what planet was in the Bible, right? Even showed you Jupiter. Like I said, he said it fell from Jupiter, and you can be like, oh, okay, cool. But it shows that Jupiter is a deity. Planets aren't deities. When I was a kid, I wasn't taught that. I was taught they were giant rocks like Earth. Some had super gas, some had the ice ones, and they were trying to see if we can live on them. Some of them was in rotation and things like that. The Bible said no, it's a deity, right? And we have to start realizing the Bible is the one that has the authority. The Bible is the one that has the definitions. The Bible is everything that we need, not outside the Bible. Because when you're outside the Bible, you get stuff like this, fake images, right? Things like this. Now, this is a real image, right? I just don't believe this is Mars, right? This looks like Earth, right? And they was like, oh, this is, Mars rock and XYZ. Like I said, how do you have objects and things like the moon landing? How do you have certain objects and stuff that can withstand all these degrees because you don't really know about the planet? How could you know that the planet is super duper hot from millions of miles away? You have to be there to explore, to do science. You couldn't just take a picture and know this Mars rover wouldn't be able to withstand certain heats or stuff like that. For instance, they said the moon on the light side, right? The one that they say is light, it's like 400 degrees. That's hot. It's like an oven, right? Okay, cool. Let's say you make a suit that withstands that. On the dark side of the moon, which is one of the parts they stepped on, apparently, it gets negative 400 degrees. That's coated in liquid nitrogen. There's no way a person's there and you're not frozen and your arm, your fit leg fell off, right? When it was getting off the moon, getting onto the moon, it's a camera already there. Who put the camera there? So there was let's say somebody, let's say they put the camera there, they landed, they put the camera there, and they was just reenacting. So that means Armstrong wasn't the first one to touch it. Whoever the cameraman was, he's the first one to touch it, right? Got the flag moving, didn't even know there was wind in space or wind on the moon. So many things we just don't look at, right? Because like I said, it's so indoctrinated in you because it's so since like I said, since you've been young, you've been a kid. Believe this is Earth. Earth looks totally different in each one of those images. Even the moon itself. Like I guess that's supposed to be the moon, but like I said, what's on the moon and what took the picture, right? And this is I guess like 1960 something. I don't know. What took the picture? What came behind the moon and took the picture in that one on the top right? Right? Like I said, there's no stars, there's no sun, there's no nothing. Even the way the earth looks in the picture up on the top, you just see a cutoff, right? It doesn't even look real, right? Planets, right? I skipped over this one. I apologize. It says planets, etymology, right? Mercury, messenger of the Roman gods. Venus, goddess of love and beauty. Earth, Germanic for ground. That's the only one that's just a regular word almost, right? Mars, the Roman god of war. Jupiter, king of the Roman gods. Saturn, god of agriculture. Uranus, Greek god of the sky. Neptune, Roman god of the sea, right? It's right in our faces, right? They play with us right in our faces. These are not real things. They're real entities, though, right? There were these angels. They come in different names, and they just change their name depending on um what I guess you say time period. So it was Greek, was it Rome, Babylon, Persia. Gods is gods. They just changed their name. It's almost like changing the company name, right? These same gods, like I showed you earlier, um, Mercury and Hermes, they're the same, right? It's just it was Greco-Roman, right? And Roman won the world, so the Romans get the last word on what the planets are named. Like the one I showed you right here, right? So the Roman was current, right? Because Rome was the last people run the world. They still run the world, but they're the last ones to run the world. So before Rome came in, they was calling, Mercury Hermes and Venus Aphrodite. But Rome run, we changing the names, right? But this whole time, nobody's thinking about what they're named after. Why are you naming them after that? But like I said, that's to keep their gods in reverence, right? To keep their things. And this is the crazy thing, right? Everything revolves around the sun. In the Bible, everything revolves around the earth. The sun moves, the moon moves, the stars move, all those things move, right? It's like a little, like you ever seen a baby crib and they got the things that rotate about the baby crib. So the earth would be like the baby's crib, and then those things at the top is was rotating, right? The stars and all them. That's how they know that you're going to see the Big Dipper here or this and that because the stars are just rotating, right? It's like a little bit of ceiling in the planetarium. The stars everywhere, they're just rotating, right? But in their universe, so their way they explain it, the sun is in the middle. Everything's rotating around, right? But then you got to think about it. They got the sun god, right? And they got Sunday. Everything revolves around the sun, right? And they try to say S-U-N, we might be S-O-N. No, I don't believe that. They're saying that because they worship the sun. The Babylonians worship the sun, all these things. But the sun right? Isn't the SON like the Son of God? It's the SUN, right? And it's not this light they're talking about. They're talking about the light of Lucifer, right? That's why they tell you worship the sun, right? That's why the sun is the center of the universe. That's why Sunday is the day we worship. This all comes back into just from, like I said, you not knowing your Bible, right? I didn't know it at one point either. I started learning this stuff and discovering it's like, dang, they just been lying this whole time, right? So the sun is the soul, and everything else goes around the sun. All those little lesser gods, right? They go around Satan, who is the big god. For them, he's their boss, right? And this is why you pay homage to. Oh, the sun gives life. They got to the point where they believe that the sun is everything, that you can't live without the sun. When God tell you the sun gonna stop shining one day, let alone in the Bible, it's in the beginning. There was, the day before the sun was made. The sun wasn't even made before the plants. The plants was made first. People was like, well, how could the plants stay alive? There's no sun. We don't live because of those things, right? God can make whatever He want happen. If He don't want the animals to live because there's no sun, then they won't live. If you want to live because there's no sun, they're gonna live, right? Same thing with the plants and trees and everything else. Just like us, whatever God wants, that's what happens. But what happens is when we let them dictate the story, them tell everything, right? This is what we get lost in. They say all these are named after Greek gods. The very last one of them, Roman gods, right? Science. Oh, well, science prove this, prove that. Science doesn't prove anything. Just even the basis of science. Like I say, like the Big Bang, right? You didn't see that. Nobody saw the Big Bang. So you still gotta have faith and believe that happened. Just like if I gotta have faith and to believe in God, you gotta have faith that a period, something, the energy was in the form of a period, like a period on a page, like a period right here on this screen. See that period? All the energy, me, you, all the animals, every single person ever lived, all the planets, everything was inside of that little dot. And boom, one day it just blew up. And hello, we're here. Come on, man, it sounds crazy, right? But like I said, this happens because the people who rule the world, which is Satan, they dictate what's going on, right? And if we don't read our Bibles, this is where we get lost in the sauce, right? This is where we struggle. This is where we don't have no say, right? This is where we don't. This is where we lose our understanding because we're not realizing that this isn't of God, right? This is totally about them, right? This isn't something that we do or anything like that. This is something that the world has told us, and like I said, it's all lies, right? This is not really what's going on. This is a false reality of letting somebody believe that planets are these giant spinning rocks. It has all this gravitational power and all these amazing feats and features that we just exploring every day. We're gonna keep. And what's even crazier, right? Now they've got past that. When you go like on YouTube and look at planets, this is like hundreds of planets. It's like a solar system here. And you go 8 trillion miles, there's another solar system here. And you go another 8 trillion miles, another solar system here, and XYZ. And it's just like solar system. Oh man, it could be just multiple us on it. This is unreal. You don't even have no type of device that can even go that fast. Because if you do, I got a lot of questions. How come these cars suck? How come these planes suck? Because you got something that can travel that fast, still have communication, take pictures. I'm not saying it's possible, but you are sure it's not helping the world taking pictures of planets that we're never going to go on. Because you clearly know it's dangerous, right? Taking pictures of these things and not realizing like this is not going to help us as a people. It's not going to help us get closer to God, and that's the whole point, right? So everything that you know in life, question it. But when you question it through the lens of the Bible, right? And realize that the Bible is the key, is the answer to everything, right? Because it's God's word. So you can't find the Bible, you ask God directly, right? And when you do that, you'll get the answers you're looking for. You'll get the answers you're looking for, the answers you want and seek in life, to have the truth. Because that's what it's all about. All this stuff right here is not truth. This is lies, right? Lies. And some truth is in it. That's how a lie works. A lie don't work if there's no truth in it, right? But that one little lie makes the whole thing fall and crumble. So we can't believe something that has a lie in it. Got to be all truth. Truth is undebatable, can't be denied, right? But a lie can. And a lot of this stuff has lies in it, like rat poison. Rat poison is 99% food. Just that 1% is not food, right? So it is food. That's why they eat it, right? But that little rat poison they put into us and things like that. This is why we don't believe in certain things. That's why we believe in certain things, right? Because we don't allow them to dictate this life for us, right? And that's not what we want, right? So that was today's lesson on the planets, right? Hope y'all learned something. If you got questions, you can always email, um, contact us through the WhatsApp, or you contact us through the website, and I'll answer the questions to the best of my ability through God, right? Because that's all we got, right? Just thinking about how they can alter so many things, and like I said, we live on those things, and we live by those things, and it causes so many problems and things like that. You don't want that, right? You want God to have the answer for you. You want God to guide you. You want God to be your light. You want God to be your planet. You want somebody to be a planet. Let it be God, the Most High God, not Jupiter or Stupida or Mercury or something like that. You want the Most High to be your God, right? So that was today's teacher, right? And I'll see y'all again, right, for another teaching. Shalom, family.